Everyone, this is Al coming to you, and welcome. Appreciate you guys watching. Today, folks, I want to do a video about the Three Stooges, about how everyone knows that the Three Stooges were probably one of the most popular comedy acts of all time. Certainly they have so much longevity, but what a lot of people don't realize is that most of the Three Stooges actually came from Brooklyn. And I'm standing here by Old Town here in Kissimmee, Florida, and the reason for that is that this would have been a place where the Three Stooges probably would have came and performed, especially when they weren't doing their short subjects, which was, they had done 190 of them over the course of their career. And they didn't have the best contract, they didn't really make a lot of money, but they made some of their money by making special appearances. So this would have been a place that they would have come to. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Moe, Shemp, and Curly actually grew up in Brooklyn. And they stayed there for a large part of their life, you know, especially became really famous. And Moe actually built houses on Cropsey Avenue and right in Bath Beach, Brooklyn. Moe himself and all the houses, now that's the thing I want to tell you about, is that Moe, Shemp, and of course Curly were all brothers. And with that in mind, all of them actually went through PS 163, which is still there in Brooklyn. So I'm going to show you a picture of that, and you'll see that on the screen right there. And the only one who didn't, like when people think of the Three Stooges, of course, they think of Moe, Larry, and Curly, because those were the golden years of the Three Stooges. But what people don't realize is that Curly was actually a replacement for Shemp. Shemp was the original brother in with the Three Stooges. And then when he went on to do a Broadway show, he came out, and then they took Curly in, who was the youngest brother of the three, and they brought him in, and they actually called him Babe. The parents called him Babe, but when Curly came in, they thought he looked a little bit too much like Moe, so they told him, you know, do something with your hair. So he actually shaved his hair off, and he got named Curly. It's really interesting, folks, because a lot of folks don't know that they really came from Brooklyn, and you could actually go, I'm going to show you a picture of that right now. So the picture you're looking at right now is the house that Moe built, and you could actually go over there. It's actually still standing. It's on, I believe it's Bay 43rd. You can look it up, Bay 43rd, right in Brooklyn on Bath Beach. And so that you're looking at right now, that was the house that Moe built. Another interesting thing is that because the Three Stooges were from Brooklyn, you got to remember, Vaudeville was very big when the Three Stooges started, which was way back like in 1922, because most of them were born like the late 1800s. Vaudeville was really popular, so the Three Stooges performed all over Brooklyn. They performed, like I remember my dad telling me, they performed at the Prospect Hall, which is now a wedding hall. I'll show you a picture of that. That's on there now. They performed on 9th Street and 5th Avenue at the McDonald's that's over there. That was, I think it was called the Savoy, but you guys could check that out. But basically they performed all over Brooklyn. And then when they became popular, of course they worked for Columbia, and they did all their short films for Columbia Pictures. And that went on for quite a while. And if you remember, Curly ended up getting a stroke, and then they brought Shemp back into the shorts. And then eventually in 1955, Curly passed away. Actually, Curly passed away, I believe it was 1952. And once he took the stroke, he was out. And then Shemp died of a massive heart attack in 1955. And that's when they brought in some of the, you know, guys that are known, but they brought in Joe Besser. And then they brought in Curly Joe, who he was like the last stooge really to come in with them. But it's really fascinating, folks, that, you know, Brooklyn has been the home to so many big stars. I mean, just to mention a few, I mean, Mel Brooks and Barbra Streisand and Barry Manilow, Neil Diamond. There's so many people who've come from Brooklyn. And but you know what? A lot of people know that those folks come from Brooklyn. But for some reason, people don't realize that the Three Stooges actually came from Brooklyn. And that's where I guess they got their personality, hopefully. So I want to talk about Larry Fine. Larry Fine actually came from Philadelphia. And the cool thing with Larry Fine and Moe were in the Three Stooges for the whole entire time, which was almost about 50 years. But Larry Fine was actually a very accomplished violinist. And the way he became a violinist was that he burned his hand when he was very little. And the doctor, I mean, of course, you're going back to the 1910 or whatever it was, and the doctor said maybe he should take up the violin to help him use the hand as kind of like a therapy. So he actually became a very accomplished violinist. So Larry Fine actually came into the group. He was kind of picked out by Moe, and once he came into the group, he stayed there through the whole time. But Larry Fine was an accomplished musician. Larry Fine was actually from Philadelphia, and they met him in Chicago. So it's a really fascinating story. And Larry Fine was a musician. My son Matt was a musician, so I always have a soft spot for musicians. So I'm going to include a piece at the end of this video. Just stay tuned and you'll see it. It's a piece on Larry Fine playing the violin, and I think it's one of my favorite scenes of Larry playing the violin. It's a funny scene, so stay tuned for that. And folks, thank you so much for watching. The channel is very close to monetization. As you know, my son Matt passed away from suicide, so we're starting a suicide prevention foundation called the Waffles Foundation. All the proceeds from this channel, obviously all the proceeds from the foundation, which hopefully is going to be up and running in a couple of months, will go to suicide prevention and the distribution of musical instruments to kids or people in need. It's a very serious problem, folks. Right now the virus is raging here in Florida. Today, Sunday, July 12th, whatever it is, 15,000 new cases today. But suicide, folks, every 40 seconds in this country, someone commits suicide. It's veterans, it's people. It's not only the people you think might be doing it, it's everybody. Elderly people, veterans, people like my son who are musicians, who weren't really content, in their career, or who he was very content. I have to correct that. He was very content, but, he just felt like he was aging out. I don't know. We don't really try to understand it because we never will understand it. All we know is that we miss him. So, folks, if you could subscribe to this channel, I'd appreciate it. Drop a like, a share. I'd really appreciate it. And I really thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great day. This is Al signing off from Central Florida. And stay tuned for Larry's bit with the violin. Thank you, folks. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
A tarantula!